Welcome one, welcome all to Max's Mic. I'm Max and I have the mic. Today's episode, I will be bringing you my predictions, my picks for who's going to win in the 2024-25 NFL Divisional Round of the playoffs. We're going to start with the Saturday games and then move swiftly into the Sunday games. So let's get into it. And starting with the 4:30 game tomorrow, Saturday. It's going to be the Houston Texans at the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Texans coming off of a big win last week against the Chargers, where they started off quite slow and sluggish, but found a way to flip the script on its head and took a commanding lead and dominated the back half of that game. In that game, this Texans team showed grit, determination, a fire, and a fueling, driving force that every Super Bowl contending and winning team has to have in order to be able to win those Super Bowls. They need to have the ability as a team to stick together when things look grim, when it feels like the game's falling away, to continue to have that sense of grit within you and within a team to fight back. And the Texans proved that they might have that and just enough to be able to go on a run. However, now probably one of, if not the toughest team that you could face in this playoffs. They got to go and take on the Chiefs in Kansas City. And the Chiefs team looking to make it 3 Super Bowls in a row. So what do I think is going to happen in this one? Well, I think it's going to be a close game. I've got the Chiefs as my pick to win it. However, it's going to be a dogfight. There is a possibility for this game to break open, but it's not really going to break open until late. This is going to stay tight and close, and it's all going to be because of the Texans' defense showing up. The Texans' offense has been hit or miss, quite frankly, this season, and a lot of that has to do with the revolving door of healthy and injured wide receivers. Fortunately, lacking both Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs for this game. However, the Texans found a way offensively to put up a load of points last week, and I would not be surprised if they find a way this week. However, they're facing a really good Chiefs defense. On the other hand, though, this Chiefs offense has struggled this season and is not as good as it has been in the past. And a lot of that has to do with two things. One, the lack of a dominant wide receiver one, a bona fide wide receiver one, and the other thing being the struggling, injured, banged up offensive line. The Chiefs' offensive line has allowed a boatload of sacks this season. And in a game in which it's the playoffs and the defense is going to be more full force, really pushing hard and fighting harder, this Chiefs O-line is really going to need to step up and find a way to protect their quarterback, who is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. However, he can't do it all. And the other thing, the wide receivers, with Rashee Rice getting injured early in this season, the Chiefs have really been struggling to find another receiver, and they drafted Xavier Worthy, but he's really not a wide receiver one. They went and traded for DeAndre Hopkins, but he really hasn't stepped up and been a wide receiver one. Quite frankly, I see Worthy as kind of that wide receiver 3 trick play kind of guy, and the Chiefs love to run their trickeries, their jet sweeps, their flips and passes behind the line of scrimmage, moving the ball around, confusing a defense, and leaving a defense guessing at who has the ball in their hand. And Worthy's got plenty of speed and the ability to really make a lot of these trick and confusing movement and motion plays work. However, I'm still yet to confidently see him really show up and be that bona fide wide receiver one. He's had some really good games down the stretch, and he's starting to really step up, but I'm waiting to see just a little more out of him. And looking at Hopkins, he still seems to be slowly molding into this offense. Travis Kelce's had a really great stellar stretch through the middle of the season, but then towards the end of the season kind of dropped off a little bit on the production side of things. Now, granted, They've also got Noah Gray, another great receiving tight end, so who can step up and make some big plays, especially getting into the end zone when asked upon him. Looking at the running backs, Pacheco's been injured and then in, and then injured and then in, and they tried Carson Steele, but he didn't seem to work. They brought back Kareem Hunt, and he had some solid stretches. So for the Chiefs, they have the ability to go and win. They've got the team to do it all over again. The real question is going to be, how good is their offense really? When it gets down to it, how many points can their offense put up? Because in the grand scheme of things, if I was the head coach, I'd almost go for it on every fourth down because I have the confidence in this Chiefs defense to get a stop. So that brings me again to my point earlier. Is this Texans defense going to show up or not? If the Texans defense can show up, provide the offense with a plethora of opportunities to go and score, eventually the team that has more time of possession tends to be the team that wins because they have more opportunities to find a way to score. You also wear down a defense as you are on the field longer. So by being on the field longer and vice versa, by being a defense and getting the stops quicker, defensively you get a rest, and offensively you have the opportunity with typically better field position to go and score. So if this Texans defense can continue to give the offense opportunities to go and score and keep this game close, then the Texans are really going to have an opportunity to win. However, I believe in Mahomes being able to simply find a way to pull this one out of his hat. It's going to be I don't think it's going to be a one-score game. I think in the end it's going to be a high two-score game. But that's simply going to come down to the Texans pushing it in the end, trying to go for the Hail Mary ball. Not necessarily throwing up a Hail Mary, but going deep and going for the touchdown in desperation. Because towards the end of the game, in the long run, I think the Chiefs' defense pulls out to be the deciding factor. So I think the Texans' defense is going to be what keeps it in them and could be what gives the Texans the win. But I think in the end, the talk of the town and the tail of the tape is going to be this Chiefs defense. Flipping it over to the nightcap, a game that I think is going to be almost the exact opposite of the earlier one. Commanders at Lions, and I think this one is going to be a higher scoring game. And I'm going with the higher scoring game because both teams have really strong offenses, but also have struggling defenses that at times have put up quite a few amount of points. Now, these two defenses are also kind of almost polar opposites in the sense that for the Lions, they are really good against the run. 5th in the league in rushing yards allowed per game. Excuse me. That's in the playoffs. But during the regular season, yes, they are still 5th in the league with 98.35. All right. Wanted to make sure that was right. Rushing yards allowed per game. This Lions defense has really stepped up against the run. However, they're lacking against the pass. When we look over to passing yards allowed per game this season, the Lions are 30th in the league with 244. They're allowing under 100 rushing yards per game, but giving up 244 passing yards per game during the regular season. And so, in a game where Jaden Daniels is the quarterback and it's a young quarterback who likes to run the ball, containing and keeping him and stopping him from being able to use his legs is going to be a key for this Lions defense in order to pull out the win. Now, yes, there's some solid receivers on this Commanders team. Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz on the tight end spot can really show up and still kind of has it. But other than that, it's really just been Jaden Daniels' ability to move in the pocket, get out of the pocket, find the open space, and find the open receiver and get it to them. That has been the real game changer and the the real driving force of this Commanders offense. And when we look at the Commanders defense, how they're kind of opposite to the Lions is that they're quite good against the pass. This season, Commanders were third in the league, allowing only 189 passing yards per game. However, when you look over at the run game, Commanders are 30th in the league with 137 yards per game on the ground. Something that could prove to be the tell as to why the Lions are going to have a real upper hand, as this Lions team, who should be getting David Montgomery back, will be able to pull out a win. The Lions, throughout the majority of this season, their offense really came off the backs of the run game. And it was the run game and the use of the two running backs, Montgomery for the power runs and Jahmyr Gibbs to stretch the defense to the edges, that allowed this Lions team to then be able to throw the ball with success. The run game really opened up the passing game and the whole playbook for the Lions this season. And so being able to go up against a Commanders team that is not too strong against the run is going to provide the Lions the opportunity to be able to open up their playbook fully. And we could see this game reach the point where a Lions lineman could be throwing another pass again. Don't think that's too likely, especially in a playoff game. However, the Lions, first in the league during the regular season with 33 points per game, the high-powered Lions offense really are going to show up. And if they can show up early and statement drive, go down, score quick, and then the defense can step up and make a stop. And while this Lions defense has been quite banged up, they're still finding ways to succeed. When we look back to week 18, in which they held the Vikings to 9 points and 262 yards. They held the best receiver in the league in Justin Jefferson to only 3 receptions on 9 targets. A Lions defense that has just found a way, a Lions team that has embodied the real personality of their city, the grit, the determination I was talking about with the Texans. The Lions have proved that they've got it, and I believe that they're going to pull out this win in a game that I believe will be much higher scoring than the earlier game, being the Texans and Chiefs. So give me the Chiefs and give me the Lions, the 2 higher seeds. Now, here's where things get exciting, and that's on Sunday. Starting the day at 3 o'clock with Rams at Eagles, and a matchup in which many believe the Eagles should be able to run away with. I think the Rams will make quite interesting. A Rams team that has a very young defense, yet strong defense, that also held the Vikings to only 9 points, and also held Justin Jefferson to 5 receptions on 8 targets. This Rams team brought the pressure and brought plenty of it. 9 sacks, 10 TFLs, the interception, and the forced fumble recovered. This Rams defense played out of their minds and was a factor that when making my picks last week, I didn't even think to consider. Jared Verse, the edge rusher, linebacker, outside linebacker, whatever you want to really call him and refer to him as, he's a pass rusher out of Florida State, just drafted last year to be the man to fill Aaron Donald's role, to be the next Aaron Donald. And well, 1 solo tackle, an assisted tackle, and that fumble recovery for a touchdown, and the Superman leaping into the end zone. Boy, did he bring a lot of pressure in last week's game, and I would not be surprised to see him get in after a Jalen Hurts who is still a little iffy. And unfortunately, as it pertains to the concussions, many times we see you get one, and then they start to add up, and the multitude continue to start to come. Tua Tagovailoa being one of them. So the Eagles are really going to need to protect Jalen Hurts in this one. And well, fortunately, that is kind of their strength, as the Eagles have definitely the best offensive line in the league. So it's going to be exciting to see how this young Rams pass rush and young Rams defensive front is going to fare against the much more veteran and experienced Eagles offensive line. The battle in the trenches is truly going to be the deciding factor in this game, especially because when we look over to the offensive side of things, the Eagles, a lot of their game runs through Saquon Barkley and his production. Now, got a little funny intervention as we continue to talk about this Eagles offense with A.J. Brown last week. And that was kind of many have seen that as different ways, but how I see it as is a silent protest in which A.J. Brown wasn't too happy with the way that he didn't really get to touch the ball or have much of an impact on last week's game. Brown recording 1 reception on 3 targets for 10 yards. Not a stat line commonly seen for a player of his skill level, especially in a game in which his team won, but also just looking at this Eagles team in general. Jalen Hurts only throwing 21 passes, completing 13 for 131 yards. Granted, he had the 2 passing touchdowns, but this Eagles offense ran through Saquon Barkley, 25 carries and 119 yards against the Packers. And he's going to be looking to do the same thing this week. And on the other side, for the Rams, they've got a really strong running back of their own in Kyren Williams, who, while last week had 16 carries for 76 yards, would not be surprised to see both his carries and rushing yards higher this week. Now, Kyren Williams was quite hot to start last week's game. However, he kind of cooled off a little bit. That being said, the offensive production was greatly picked up from Stafford and his arm, going 19-27, 209 yards, and also recording 2 passing touchdowns. This is a Rams team that is short ball, not really going to chuck it up deep. A lot of production from the run game, from Puka Nacua, who excels with those short slants and in routes, as well as Cooper Kupp, who only saw 1 target, caught it for 29 yards. It was a big 29-yard reception. However, quite surprising, though, that it was only 1 reception on 1 target. So in this week, look for the Rams and their offense to really get their playmakers more action. Puka Nacua, too, 5 receptions on 9 targets. So in this game, for the Rams to win, they've got to get Kyren Williams the ball a little bit more. He did get the 3 receptions on 3 targets, but 16 carries, a little lower than his 20 carry per game average. Look for a few more carries to him and this Rams offensive line to try to create an opportunity for him to run more. And look for the pass catchers, being Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, to get some more receptions. And they're going to really need to rely on that, as this Eagles offense is quite good. So who do I think is going to win? Well, I think in the end, this game's going to go in favor of the Eagles. They're just that much better. This Eagles defense, especially the secondary, that was quite questionable, and on the younger side coming into this season with the drafting of Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell, have really stepped up and improved as the season has progressed, and I think that will prove to be the deciding factor and give the Eagles the win. And finally, 6:30 Sunday night, the true game that everyone's really been waiting for. Sure to be another classic. It's the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen going at it toe-to-toe once again. The 2 MVP favorites. Who's going to win? I think it'll be Allen. But in this game, I do not think Josh Allen will prevail. This Buffalo team has really just found a way to score a load of points. Second in the league during the regular season in points per game with 30, just behind the Lions. But just behind them, so the Bills at second with 30.88, and just behind the Bills are the Baltimore Ravens with 30.47 points offensively. However, the difference maker is the defense. When you look over to the defenses, points allowed per game, Buffalo in the regular season sitting at 21.65. The Ravens, 21.24, slightly above them. However, this is a Ravens team that has seen a drastic improvement from the start of the season to the end of the season, something that the Bills defense did not have or have as big of. There was an improvement, but not as big as the Ravens. Granted, the Ravens defense also started at a much lower level than the Bills. I believe that the Ravens defense now are at a significantly higher level and are playing at a much higher level than the Bills defense, which is going to be a big difference maker, as the last time these two teams matched up, it was quite early in the season, and the Ravens took that one at home 35-10. In a game in which Derrick Henry, 24 carries for 199 yards. A game that was dominated by Derrick Henry, and I would not be surprised to see the Ravens look his way for a lot of carries in this one. And just like kind of the Bills have found success in this game, the last time these two teams matched up, Justice Hill, the running back, with 6 receptions and 78 receiving yards, also providing a lot of production. And on the other hand, you look at the Bills, and what did they do in that game? Josh Allen, 16 for 29, only 1 turnover, but the lack and the struggle in the passing game, plus James Cook only getting 9 carries for 39 yards. So the going away from the running game really proved to be the downfall for the Bills. So in this matchup, expect to see the Bills offense try and stick with the run game a little more and not go away from it too soon. But also, it's going to come down to, can the Bills receivers also find a way to get open? This is not a really talented Bills receiving core. Granted, they've got a great tight end in Dalton Kincaid, but when you look at the wide receivers, Khalil Shakur, who I think is a wide receiver 2. Keon Coleman, who I think could have been the wide receiver 1 of this team, is also a wide receiver 2, or honestly more of a wide receiver 3 on any other team. And then you've got Curtis Samuel and Mike Collins, who are both wide receiver 3s on any other team. So there's no one really on this team that is a standout, bona fide wide receiver 1. It just feels like the team's loaded with a bunch of 2 and 3s, which can find the way to produce and be productive. However, with no one star receiver, it makes things a little bit easier for a defense to be able to cover, as you're not going to have in the back of your head the fear of a Justin Jefferson or a Tyreek Hill or a CD Lamb breaking things open, just to name a few, although there are some other great stellar receivers. But those are some of the guys that are more of the deep ball threats. There isn't really a deep ball threat kind of guy on this team. It's a lot of the short game, which the Ravens are quite good against. When you look at the regular season, Baltimore leading the league in rushing yards allowed per game with 80 yards. And while the passing defense struggled, 244 as well for the Ravens, passing yards allowed per game. They've improved significantly since earlier in the season, which skews kind of some of those numbers. But they've also faced a lot of really good teams who have some bigger names receivers. So I believe that the Ravens will pull out the win in this one simply due to the fact that they have seen much improvement. They found a way, and they're going to probably stick to the same game plan that they ran last time these two teams matched up. That did work, and I think that sticking to the game plan of letting Derrick Henry carry the ball and run away with this game, letting Lamar do his thing and not putting too much of a focus on the passing game, is going to prove successful for the Bills. They've got to find a way to get the passing game going, but they can't go away with the run. And granted, while the Ravens are good against the run, you've got to be able to run the ball, as the taking away the ability to run the ball takes away about half of your playbook, if not at least a quarter of it, as well as it makes you one-dimensional and allows the defense to anticipate what's about to happen and be able to make the adjustments to prevent you. So you can't go away from the run game, especially too early in this one, although I don't expect it to be that successful for the Bills. They've got to at least try to keep it up. And they've got to find some different ways to get to the open receivers and find ways for these receivers to get open. So once again, my final picks, give me the Lions, give me the Chiefs, give me the Eagles, and give me the Ravens to win this week and move on to the conference championships. And until then, I'm Max Raymond saying have a great day, enjoy the games tomorrow, and stay tuned. Head over to Instagram, Max's Mike on Instagram, where my picks will be coming out for the college football playoff championship game. Until then, have a great night. Have a great evening, everyone. Take care and goodbye.